Ah yes, the Millennium Era. The era of Godzilla that Neca just didn't get to show a whole lot of love for. We did, however, get Neca Godzilla 2001 and 2003. These are just two of the Godzillas I'll be covering in this review today, and we'll also be throwing in Shin Godzilla, just as a little bonus to kind of pad this episode out. We've got some good, and we've got some bad, and we've got some ugly. So, let's dive in. Shockingly, Neca didn't start the Millennium Era off with Godzilla 2000. It just never happened. But we did get the popular Godzilla GMK 2001 design. No objection to that. Probably one of my top 5 favorite suits, by the way, from the movies. In this figure, I also own the second re-release, just so we're clear about that. At first glance, it's a pretty good figure, but that's really all it is, just good. The spines on the figure just gradually grow lazy as you go down its back to its tail, and it's to the point to where some of the spines on the tail are just unpainted, and to me that just doesn't sit as well. I can appreciate how the spines are on the back, but just to see all the design and coloration lost just looks lazy to me. It could have been perfected. Also, maybe this is just mine, but I don't know what's happening with the gums. It just really throws me off. On the plus side, the fangs look nice, and it captures the face well. This is probably one of the key plus points for this figure. Other features well intact are the textures on the belly, the spines, and those oversized feet. Tail includes the bendy wire that's kind of limited and a nice hand articulation. This figure is just kind of hit and miss to me, and it's one that I almost passed on. And a little confession, I did pass on him, but this is because I wasn't fully committed to the Godzilla line at this point. Next, we got the Godzilla 2003 suit. Okay, you either love or you hate this figure, and I personally love it. And it's the closest that Neca ever gave us to getting a Godzilla 2000 figure. And it's also a good base figure, so if you wanted to modify it a bit, this is where you're going to start from. From the sides, he looks amazing. Then you stare at it from the front, and you get Derpzilla. Nah, I'm not going to use that to knock this figure too much, because really this figure, every which way in the detail, it really makes up for it. And I gotta say, boy, does this figure have so much variety in texture and detail, including the battle wound from Godzilla against Mecha Godzilla. Our tail on this figure doesn't get the range that Goji 89 gets, but it's just as impressive. It's very accurate for what it's going after and its respective design, lots of new articulation, and a new area which is very polarizing to some collectors. I never had an issue with it really, but I can see the problem with it. Considering if you move it, it's impossible to mask. Not to mention, I can't imagine how ugly this is if you're doing stop motion, because it's just gonna be there and you're gonna see it. No atomic breath included with this figure, but I still highly recommend it. Also, the interior of the mouth looks magnificent, by the way. Great way for Neca to exit the Godzilla line. Yes, unfortunately, this was the end, pretty well. It was one of the two final new sculpts they had unveiled with Goji 89 and Goji 2003. They were unveiled at Toy Fair 2020, and it was a very nice surprise because a lot of people didn't see it coming. And this is probably the one that's the most well-painted beast, and you must have it in your collection. Alright, so now we are on the final Toho Godzilla to cover in the timeline. We are on Godzilla 2016, or better known as Shin Godzilla. This is also an original release of it, and I never planned to own this figure. I thought it looked atrocious from the promo pictures and the reviews dropping. I want to say it was G-Fest 2017, I was just swept up in the excitement of being at G-Fest, and I saw it and I picked it up. Some figures I get a slightly different perspective of when I see them in person. I'm not going to say this is an extremely impressive figure. It didn't look bad, but I grabbed it, and there's a lot to tackle with this Godzilla. Of all the designs, there is just so much happening on a little 6-inch figure. Neca really, really, really tried. And you know what? Bless Neca's heart for even trying to tackle this figure, but it really is just a mess at this scale. The tail is butchered and odd, cut in segments way before it became a norm for Neca. There may be a slight bendy wire at the end of the tail, but I'm not for certain on that. In the arms, I never want to move, especially bending at the elbow. If you've collected Neca figures, you just know that these can be problematic. Paint gets in those joints, it's all stiffened up, and you force it, and yeah, you got a problem on your hand because it's gonna break. And next thing you know, pull out the super glue. So that's just what I want to throw out there about that. General paint apps give me a burnt pizza vibe, but that's pretty accurate to what the design was in the movie because that's just how it was. For some reason, I don't hate this Godzilla. It just exists in my collection. And I think what saves it the most is memories that are just tied to it. And that has to be G-Fest 2017, which was really special to me. So something makes me appreciate it, even if it's not a top 5 favorite Godzilla that Neca has released. thank you so much for joining me in another video, and we've got one more video to go. In the next one, I'm going to throw in a bonus. So along with the legendary Godzillas, I'm going to throw in the Neca Rodan and Mothra. So stay tuned for that, because that will be coming your way within a week.